Picture this. I'm standing on my front porch, the sun dipping low, painting the sky in shades of peach and violet, when a sheriff's patrol car rolls away with my old HOA nemesis. Margaret Maggie Thornton, handcuffed in the back, her face a mix of shock and fury as she realizes her reign of terror just crashed and burned. My son, Jake, a deputy with the county, stands beside me, shaking his head with that half-smirk he gets when justice lands just right. Let me take you back to how Maggie, the self-proclaimed queen of the Oak Ridge Meadows HOA, tried to bully me even after I escaped her clutches, only to end up arrested for her own lies, right in front of my new house. It all started with a dream. One I'd been chasing for years, a home where I could paint my mailbox purple if I felt like it, let my grass grow a little wild, and not have to answer to a clipboard-wielding dictator. I'm Clara. By the way, a single mom who spent a decade as a project manager, juggling deadlines and details, so I'm no stranger to staying calm under pressure. But after 6 years in Oak Ridge Meadows, a fancy-sounding subdivision that was more prison than paradise, I was done. Done with the endless rules, the snide newsletters, and most of all, done with Maggie Thornton. She was the HOA president. A woman in her early 60s with a perm so tight it could double as a helmet, a penchant for knockoff Chanel sunglasses, and a silver Lincoln Navigator that prowled the streets like a shark sniffing for blood. Maggie didn't just enforce rules, she lived for them, her lips always pursed, her eyes scanning for any hint of rebellion, like my slightly too colorful porch swing or the time I left a rake out past 6 p.m. The final straw was when she sent me a certified letter demanding I replace my garish, yellow front door with something from the approved palette. Think shades of oatmeal and despair. That was it. I was out. I found my escape just 3 miles away, a cozy craftsman-style house on 4 acres of rolling land, complete with a creek that babbled like it was gossiping about the neighbors and a big old maple tree that begged for a tire swing. The best part? It was outside Oak Ridge Meadows, free from Maggie's reach, or so I thought. I had the property surveyed before closing, a habit from my project management days, making sure every boundary was crystal clear. Moving day was a blur of boxes, bubble wrap, and my best friend, Lisa, cracking jokes while we hauled furniture. By noon, the moving truck was half empty, and I was starting to feel that first spark of freedom. Then I saw it, Maggie's Navigator, gleaming in the sunlight, creeping along the county road at the end of my driveway. My stomach dropped. She didn't stop, just stared, her head tilting like she was cataloging every unpacked box, every blade of grass that dared to grow past an inch. I told myself she was just curious, maybe lost. But deep down, I knew better. Maggie Thornton didn't get lost. She hunted. 2 days later, I was out front, digging up a patch for a flower garden, when her Navigator rolled by again. Slower this time, the tinted window sliding down to reveal Maggie in all her glory, sunglasses perched on her nose, a smirk that could curdle cream. "Enjoying your little retreat, Clara?" she called out, her voice sweet as arsenic. "It's quite a change from Oak Ridge Meadows, isn't it?" I wiped dirt off my hands, forcing a smile. "That's the idea, Maggie. Freedom's a nice change." She gave me that tight-lipped smile, the one that said she wasn't done with me, and purred, "Well, we'll see how that goes." The window slid up, and she sat there, engine idling, for a good minute before driving off. It wasn't just a visit, it was a warning, a flex of power from a woman who couldn't stand losing control. That night, I called Jake. He's 28, my pride and joy, a deputy sheriff who's seen every kind of small-town drama. "Mom, she's got no jurisdiction out there," he said, his voice warm but firm. "You're 3 miles past her precious HOA. She's just trying to rattle you. Ignore her." I wanted to believe him, but Maggie wasn't the type to let go. I started walking my property line, double-checking the survey stakes, snapping photos with timestamps, call it paranoia or just my inner project manager kicking in. Something told me this was only the beginning. Sure enough, a few mornings later, I found a flyer tucked under my mailbox, not addressed, just a generic ad for a landscaping service, but folded inside was a note on Oak Ridge Meadows letterhead. It read, a friendly reminder. While Oak Ridge Meadows standards don't officially apply to nearby properties, considerate neighbors maintain visual harmony for the benefit of all. Overgrown lawns, bold colors, or unsightly displays can lower property values and disrupt our community's peace. Thank you for your cooperation. Oak Ridge Meadows Aesthetic Committee. No signature. But it reeked of Maggie, her passive-aggressive tone, her obsession with harmony. She'd trespassed onto my land to leave it. I slipped the note into a plastic bag, labeled it Exhibit A, and felt my blood start to simmer. This wasn't just meddling. It was a declaration of war. Maggie's campaign got bolder from there. Her navigator became a daily sight. Sometimes parked just beyond my property line, angled so she could watch my front yard like a hawk. I'd catch her silhouette, scribbling in a notebook or muttering into her phone. Like she was building a case against my zinnias. I wasn't about to let her intimidate me, so I kept working on my garden, planting bright red geraniums just to spite her. One afternoon, as I was staking tomato plants, she stepped out of her car, standing right at the edge of my property, her arms crossed, no sunglasses this time, just a glare that could melt steel. "Planting vegetables, Clara," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You know those attract pests, don't you? Pests that don't respect boundaries." I stood up, brushing dirt off my jeans, and looked her dead in the eye. "Maggie, this is my land. What I plant here, pests or no pests, is none of your business." She smirked, scribbling something in her notebook. "Everything's connected. Clara, community standards matter, even out here." I wanted to laugh. She was quoting community standards like they were scripture, 3 miles from her kingdom. Instead, I went inside, checked my new security cameras, and saw her car on the footage, clear as day. I started to log dates, times, what she said. Maggie was escalating, and I was ready. Her next move was to drag my neighbors into it. Old Mr. Whitaker, who owned the orchard next door, stopped by one morning, looking sheepish, twisting his baseball cap in his hands. "Clara, had a strange visitor yesterday," he said. "Lady in a big silver SUV. Said she was from some regional standards board. Asked if I'd seen any neglect around your place." I felt a cold fury rising. "What did you tell her, Tom?" He grinned, his eyes twinkling. "Told her the only neglect I see is her wasting gas driving out here to bother good folks. Your place looks better than ever." I thanked him, my heart warmed by his loyalty, but Maggie's nerve, going after my neighbors, lit a fire in me. She was trying to isolate me, turn my new home into a battleground. Then came the letter, delivered by mail this time, on that same pompous Oak Ridge Meadows letterhead. It listed observed nuisances at my address, excessive natural growth, my wildflower meadow. Non-standard exterior decor, my teal mailbox, visible tools during daytime, a shovel I'd left by the garden, and my favorite, unregulated bird feeding activities likely to attract undesirable species. It ended with a veiled threat. "We urge prompt remediation to maintain harmony with Oak Ridge Meadows. Further action may be required if compliance is not achieved." Signed, of course, by Margaret Thornton, HOA President and concerned citizen. I photocopied it, added it to my evidence pile, and called Jake. "She's sending official letters now, accusing my bird feeder of ruining the neighborhood," I said, half laughing, half fuming. Jake whistled. "Mom, she's unhinged. This is harassment. Keep everything, letters, footage, logs. If she crosses onto your property again or blocks the road, call the non-emergency line. We'll build a case." He was right. Maggie's letters were sneaky. Never outright illegal, just a slow drip of intimidation. But I wasn't backing down. I was getting organized. Maggie's next tactic was straight up dirty. One morning, a county code enforcement officer showed up, a young woman named Sarah who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Got a complaint about overgrown vegetation posing a fire risk," she said, checking her clipboard. I walked her around, showed her my meadow far from the house, no dry brush in sight, and the mowed lawn around the porch. "This is a 4-acre lot," I explained. "The meadow's for pollinators, not a hazard." Sarah nodded, almost apologetic. "Honestly, ma'am, this looks fine. Some folks just see things differently." I knew who some folks was. 2 days later, Animal Control pulled up, another anonymous tip about stray dogs running loose. I introduced them to my 12-year-old beagle, Daisy, who was snoring on the porch, and the officer. A gruff guy named Hank just snorted. "That lady with the silver SUV again, huh? She calls us every other week about squirrels or stray cats. Waste of my time." I logged both visits, got their names, and felt the news tightening, not around me, but around Maggie. By now, Jake was fed up. "She's abusing county resources, Mom," he said over the phone. "These fake complaints tie up staff. If we can prove she's lying on purpose, That's serious. Keep documenting. I did, meticulously, but I needed something concrete, something undeniable. Maggie handed it to me on a windy Thursday afternoon when I'd hired a local tree service to trim dead branches off my maple. The crew, led by a guy named Pete, had their truck parked fully on my driveway, cones set out for safety, even though they were nowhere near the road. I was inside, pouring lemonade for them, when I heard shouting. I rushed to the window and saw Maggie out of her Navigator, which was half parked on the county road, blocking a lane, waving her arms at Pete like he'd personally offended her. I stepped outside, keeping my cool. "Problem, Maggie?" I asked. She spun around, her face red as a beet. "Problem? This is chaos. Your workers are blocking the road, their equipment's an eyesore. And the noise, it's ruining the peace for miles." I glanced at Pete's truck, clearly on my land, then at her Navigator, actually obstructing traffic. "Maggie," I said, my voice low, "their truck's on my property. Your car's the one blocking the road. And the only noise I hear is you." Pete chimed in, trying to stay polite. "Ma'am, we're just trimming a tree, all legal. All on Clara's land." Maggie wasn't having it. "I'm the president of Oak Ridge Meadows HOA," she snapped. "I have a duty to protect public safety." Then she pulled out her phone, smirking. "I'm calling the sheriff. This unauthorized work is a nuisance, and your heavy vehicles are damaging the road." My heart raced, not with fear, but with clarity. This was it. She was lying to law enforcement, right here, with witnesses. I leaned in, calm as ever. "Maggie, you know my son Jake's a deputy sheriff, right?" Her eyes flickered, but she brushed it off. "That doesn't matter. The law's the law." She dialed, her voice turning sugary as she spoke to dispatch. "Yes, I need to report a commercial vehicle blocking the road, unpermitted work." Total disruption. Pete and I exchanged a look. He just shook his head, muttering, "Lady's lost it." I started recording on my phone, capturing her car, her pacing, everything. The wait for the deputies felt like forever, but I used it wisely, texting Jake. "Maggie's at my place. Just called the sheriff on me for tree trimming, claiming road blockage. Heads up." He replied instantly, "Stay calm, Mom. Let the deputies handle it. Document everything." When the first patrol car arrived, 2 deputies, Rodriguez and Lee, stepped out, looking confused by the calm scene. Maggie rushed them, practically vibrating with self-righteous fury. "Officers, thank goodness. This operation is a hazard. Blocked roads, loud equipment, no permits." She gestured wildly at Pete's truck, ignoring her own Navigator, still half in the lane. Rodriguez listened, jotting notes, while Lee checked Pete's setup. "Ma'am," Lee said to me, "you own this property?" I nodded. "Yes, sir. Clara Evans. The tree crews here at my request, all on my land." He glanced at Maggie's car, then back at her. "Miss Thornton, your vehicle's blocking traffic. Can you move it?" Maggie's jaw dropped. "But I'm the one who called you." Rodriguez stayed calm. "We need the road clear, ma'am. Pull it onto the shoulder." She huffed, stomping off to move her car, clearly thrown that they weren't jumping to her side. Just then, Jake pulled up in his unmarked SUV, badge on his belt, face unreadable. Maggie spotted him and lit up, thinking she'd won the lottery. "Deputy Evans." "Thank goodness, someone who understands community standards." Jake gave her a curt nod. "Miss Thornton." He turned to Rodriguez and Lee. "What's the situation?" Rodriguez briefed him. Fake complaint about road blockage and unpermitted work, but Pete's truck was clearly on private property. And Maggie's car was the only issue. Maggie stood there, smug, waiting for Jake to back her up. Instead, he fixed her with a stare that could freeze lava. "Miss Thornton, you told dispatch a commercial vehicle was blocking the road and work was unpermitted, correct?" She hesitated, sensing the trap. "Well, it's a potential issue, the whole setup," Jake cut her off. "You said the truck was blocking the road. That's a specific claim. Is that true?" Maggie stammered, her confidence cracking. It was part of the problem." Lee spoke up, holding his notepad. "Ms. Thornton, your vehicle was the only one blocking traffic. The tree crew's equipment is on private property, and this work doesn't need a permit." Jake's voice turned steel. "Filing a false report with law enforcement is a crime, Miss Thornton. You're aware of that." Her face went white, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. I was concerned. "I'm a community leader." Rodriguez stepped forward, done with her excuses. "Miss Thornton, based on your false report, which wasted our time and resources. I'm placing you under arrest." The world seemed to slow. Maggie shrieked, "Arrest me? You can't. I'll sue this whole department." But Rodriguez was already cuffing her, reading her rights as her designer purse hit the dirt. Pete let out a low whistle, muttering, "Well, damn." Jake caught my eye for a split second, a flicker of satisfaction in his gaze, but he stayed professional, letting his colleagues handle it. As they led Maggie to the patrol car, her shouts fading, the neighbors started poking their heads out, Mr. Whitaker across the way, Lisa driving up to check on me. It was a scene straight out of a movie, Maggie's empire crumbling in real time. After the dust settled, Jake hung back, leaning against his SUV. "You okay, Mom?" he asked, his voice softer now. I nodded, still processing. "Thanks, Jake. Not for, but for doing it right." He shrugged. She lied to dispatch, wasted everyone's time. Couldn't ignore that, no matter who she was. He glanced at my garden, grinning. "Nice tomatoes, by the way." We laughed, the tension breaking, and he headed back to his shift. Pete and his crew got back to work. The buzz of their saws like a victory anthem. Word of Maggie's arrest spread like wildfire. Mr. Whitaker called the next day, chuckling. "Heard your old HOA buddy got herself in a pickle. About time." The Oak Ridge Meadows board held an emergency meeting, and without Maggie's iron grip, people spoke up. They found she'd been dipping into HOA funds for her little enforcement projects. Those fancy letterheads weren't free. Maggie was charged with making a false police report, a misdemeanor that came with a fine and community service, picking up trash along the very roads she tried to control. Poetic, right? She resigned as HOA president, claiming she wanted to focus on personal growth, but we all knew she was dodging a mutiny. A new president, a quiet retiree named Ellen, took over and started undoing Maggie's damage. They loosened the color rules, let kids play in their yards, even allowed a gnome or two. My life out on those 4 acres became everything I'd dreamed. Wildflowers blooming, daisy napping in the sun, bird feeders buzzing with undesirable sparrows. Maggie's navigator never darkened my road again. Sometimes, when I'm weeding the garden, I think about her, not with anger, but a kind of pity. She was so desperate to control everything, she couldn't see how small her world had become. Me? I learned to stand my ground, to trust my instincts, and to keep a damn good paper trail. So, what do you make of it? Was Maggie just a bully who got what she deserved? Or did I push her buttons by flaunting my freedom? Have you ever had a neighbor or an HOA try to run your life? Drop a comment. I want to hear your stories, the crazier the better. If this tale of suburban showdowns hit home, give it a like, subscribe, and let's keep swapping war stories. Because sometimes, the best way to win is to let the tyrant trip over their own ego.